Yes, I will present Carolrhoda picture books and then jump right into Millbrook after that. We have 6 picture books in Carolrhoda this season, and they are all fantastic. First up is String Ball by Chris Monroe, who we know and love for her Monkey with a Tool Belt series. This book is a standalone title that takes a wholly different approach from any of Chris's other books, and I cannot get over how incredible it is. Working in a limited palette of black, white, and red, Chris has created a story about a kitten whose curiosity about a string ball craft project leads to an amazing journey. The book starts with a one-page tutorial for how to make your own string ball, and the remainder of the book is wordless. Because we can't see the kitten once it climbs inside this ball and starts rolling, there's a section along the bottom of each page that shows us the inside view of the kitten inside the ball. It's extremely clever and is a great way for young kids to work on their visual literacy skills and to consider multiple perspectives for what's happening in each scene. Reading this book feels almost like watching an old silent film, and there's a ton of physical comedy. This is a great one for fans of books like Kitten's First Full Moon and They All Saw a Cat. Next up, We Are the Scrappy Ones started as a poem by author and disability activist Rebecca Tossig to celebrate disabled children and affirm their worth, and it has become an absolutely gorgeous picture book text. Illustrations by Kirby Fagan, who is disabled as well, depict children and a few adults who have a wide range of disabilities, some quite obvious and some more subtle, who are living and learning and adapting as they make their way through the world. It's a beautiful and empowering book, and it's in the vein of other books like I Am Enough by Grace Byers and I Am Every Good Thing by Derek Barnes. The book concludes with an author's note and illustrator's note in which Rebecca and Kirby talk more about their own disabilities and how their own experiences shaped the text and illustrations. We worked with a number of sensitivity readers throughout the process of making this book to ensure that it accurately reflects the realities with people with all sorts of disabilities. While it may sound somber, I want to assure you this book is infused with joy and hope and is a book that readers of all backgrounds can enjoy and appreciate. Next, Dreams to Ashes is a powerful work of narrative nonfiction by Livia Blackburn, a Chinese-American novelist and picture book author. Set in Los Angeles, California, this book tells the story of the young men who immigrated from China to the United States to seek their fortune during the gold rush. Of course, gold proved elusive, and so the men fanned out to various places along the West Coast, including intending to earn a living and eventually return to China. Los Angeles at this time was more small town than big city and was more than a little rough around the edges. Newspapers routinely published anti-Chinese rhetoric, and when a conflict broke out between two Wei-Guan mutual aid societies, this was the spark that set off a massacre. By the following morning, 18 Chinese men were dead, only one of whom had anything to do with the original conflict. The book is a somber and accessible exploration of the history of Chinese immigration to the U.S. and the sometimes deadly result of the racism these immigrants faced. Yet it also offers hope. In the book's concluding lines, Livia asks, "How does a country learn from the past?" And she answers, by remembering, by writing the dark stories back into history books, by shining a light on the consequences of hate and working to keep those fires from sparking again. The illustrations are by Nicole Shu, who we know from All of a Sudden and Forever. The back matter will include further information as well as some primary source photographs from Los Angeles in the late 19th century. Next, And to the Fox is a marvelous poem by U.S. Poet Laureate Ada Limón. First published in her collection, The Herding Kind, with Milkweed Editions, this brief poem follows a fox as it bounds joyfully through the world, piecing together a living along the edges of a place inhabited by humans. Illustrator Gabby D'Alessandro set the story in Lexington, Kentucky, where Limón is based, and incorporated vegetation from some of the other poems in The Herding Kind throughout the art. It's a lush and highly accessible introduction to Ada Limon's poetry for young readers. And for our translated picture books in spring 2025, we're releasing The Rock in My Throat in Spanish and in Hmong, and Ruth in the Green Book in Spanish. And then on the dino front, we have a new Dino Holidays title, Dino Birthday, which delightfully highlights the birthdays of 4 different dinos. Each one is in a different season and features a different theme. We have a pool party, a roller rink, a sports-themed party, and winter sledding and outdoor fun. As a running gag, the pterodactyl twins show up at the various parties dressed in funny disguises. It is very cute. But that is not all for the dinos. We also have our first 2 titles in Dino Deportes, our new Spanish language series. And pardon my pronunciation. We're starting with Dino Soccer and Dino Baseball, which conveniently have the same titles in English and Spanish. And in case you're curious, yes, the books in Spanish are in rhyming verse, just as the originals are. Our translator said they were a lot of fun to translate. And now we'll move on to the Millbrook list, starting with our picture books. First up is Kaho'olawe, an epic picture book from debut author Kamalani Hurley. It tells the story of Hawaii's smallest island, which is located near Maui. The book begins with Kaho'olawe's formation as a volcano and chronicles its long history, including early Polynesian settlers, the island becoming overrun by goats, and during World War II, when after an attack on Pearl Harbor, the island starts being used for target practice by the U.S. military. Native Hawaiians believe Kaho'olawe is the physical form of the god of the sea, Kanaloa, and the island itself is sacred. So using it for target practice did not sit well. After more than 50 years, control of the island was passed to the state of Hawaii, and scientists and volunteers have been working together for the last 30 years to restore the island. This is a story of environmental hope in the vein of A River's Gift by Patricia Newman. And for this book, both author Kamalani Hurley and illustrator Harinani Orme are native Hawaiian. Access to Kaho'olawe is restricted, but Harinani was able to join a trip to the island and see it for herself while she was working on the stunning final art. Back matter will include an author's note and illustrator's note, as well as a few photographs and a glossary of Hawaiian words and pronunciation. This book meets a real need for more books by Pacific Islanders, which feels very timely since May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Next up, Sharks Unhooked is an exciting new picture book from Patricia Newman. Patricia connected with Christina Zanotto, who as a little girl grew up dreaming of making friends with sharks deep in the ocean. And when she did grow up, she moved to the Bahamas and began swimming with sharks and getting to know them. In time, the sharks started coming to her with large fishing hooks stuck in their bodies, and Christina carefully began to remove them. She now dives in a protective suit, and the sharks somehow seem to know that she's there to help. Beautiful art by Becca Hall accompanies this amazing story of an often feared animal that truly needs human help and protection. The back matter includes a note from Christina herself, who worked closely with Patricia to tell the story for young readers. The back matter also includes a link to a video that shows Christina reaching into a shark's mouth to remove a hook. And our final picture book for Millbrook this season is a photo book. Black Mambas is a fascinating look at the first all-women anti-poaching unit, which is based in South Africa. Author and photographer Kelly Kroll traveled to South Africa late last year to meet with these women and learn more about their work. The book is told in the voice of the women who directly address the reader to talk about the many ways they work to protect the animals in the Greater Kruger National Park. Kelly Kroll's previous book with us was Washed Ashore, and he brings a lot of curiosity and enthusiasm to telling the story of this unique and inspiring group of women. And now on to Watching and Waiting, What Hatches from Nature's Nurseries. This is a really lovely new book from Sarah Levine, who we know from her science-themed picture books, as well as the book Germs Up Close. This book showcases a variety of animals that hatch from eggs, egg cases, and galls, and that those components help this book stand out from other similar books that only talk about eggs. This book also highlights the value of watching and waiting as a means of conducting scientific investigation. The back matter includes further scientific information about eggs, egg cases, and galls, as well as information about what types of these eggs readers can place carefully in a jar and observe in their homes or their classrooms until the animals hatch. It's a great science book for springtime. Next up, The Great Narwhal Rescue is our newest great rescue title from Sandra Markle. This is a really fascinating look at these Arctic animals. Due to climate change and global warming, the waters in the Arctic have been opening up more because there's not as much ice, which means that there are more ships coming through for oil exploration and just for a passage, because it might be shorter to sail through the Arctic versus going around another way. And this increased shipping traffic also means increased noise, and that has an effect on narwhals. Sandra Markle, as always, was able to connect with the scientists doing this research and get firsthand information about their experiments. They were tracking different narwhals and conducting experiments to look at what happened when they were exposed to different levels of noise. They determined that this has a negative effect on these animals, and one of the potential solutions is to sort of set up these curtains of bubbles that act as a buffer for some of the noises being produced by the activities going on in the Arctic. So it's a really fascinating look at these animals that, you know, seem almost mythical with their horns, and you learn more about the animals as well as the environmental concerns, and ultimately, you know, have a look at what can be done to really protect these very unique animals. And finally, we haven't had a sports title in Millbrook for a little while, but Spectacular Sports is back with Slam Dunk. Speaking of Go Timberwolves, we have, you know, great local representation on the cover here. This is a really fun, fast-paced look at both the history of the Slam Dunk, because it didn't used to be sort of such a essential part of the game the way it is now, and look at pivotal moments with slam dunks, look at current players and historical players who really made this shot what it is. Really, really high interest look at this particular shot in basketball. The book is very much in the vein of It's Out of Here, the home run book we did with Matt Doden a few seasons ago. And that's it for our middle grade books. Then in terms of paperbacks, we have a few different titles, including some picture books. The Clock Struck One, which is about telling time on both analog and digital clocks. Then we have Snack, Snooze, Skedaddle, which is about the different survival strategies the animals use to prepare for winter. And we have A Garden in Your Belly, which is about the microbiome and how foods you eat affect that garden in your belly. And finally, Tales of the Cryptids, which is a long-time popular book about cryptozoology and all these creatures that may or may not exist. Very high interest.